Now, yesterday you announced that you were returning some of the campaign funds. Why did you do that?
Well, you know, people are very concerned about the scandals that seem to always be unfolding, and I wanted to just send a message that if there's a serious investigation and now charges, if we've had contributions from people who have been indicted, that we don't want to hold on to those contributions. It's just, you know, our way of saying we understand the frustration that's out there, and I felt the right thing to do was return that money.
Now, the governor decided to set it aside in case the feds wanted to seize the money. Why is that not as a good thing to do as what you did?
Well, I think everybody has to make their own choices. We return the money. If the feds want to seize the money, they could seize it from the individuals whose money it is.
Now, what part of your job is oversight of state contracts, and we saw the allegations here of state contracts being fixed at SUNY Poly and at a couple of other facilities, Solar City. Why don't you have more oversight of these contracts? Well,
part of the challenge, particularly with SUNY, is that oversight was taken away from us a couple of years ago as part of the budget process, both for SUNY and a number of what are called statewide centralized contracts that are done now through the Office of General Services. At the time, I raised the concern that the process was set up for us to have the additional set of eyes to look at these contracts on what we call a pre-audit basis, or before the approval is done. You know, we could still audit some of this work after the fact, but if there's a problem and you're auditing after the fact, you can't really prevent the problem from happening. So we felt that taxpayer value was not being protected by diminishing our oversight. Now, whether or not some of what's being revealed would have turned up sooner if we had that role, you know, it's hard to look backwards, but there's no doubt that moving forward, we should have more checks and balances in place, more accountability, more transparency, and I think having a robust review, including a review from the Comptroller's office, in the areas where we've been removed, you know, statutorily from that process, would be very good to restore credibility for how this money is being spent.
Well, it does seem like you would have been able to catch this because the reporter, this independent reporter out in Buffalo looking at the contracts, caught it.
Yeah, well, I'd like to think we would have, but, you know, the main point is there's a good chance we would have, number one. Number two, perhaps if people know that someone else is looking, that might lessen the temptation to try to get away with something. So when you have a process that's very closed and very opaque, and again, these are allegations still, it remains to be seen how it all gets adjudicated, but if the people who are very closely involved, you know, with the decisions were in fact furthering their own interests and getting enriched by it, well, if you at least had another set of eyes looking, somebody might have thought twice before they did that. So when you have too closed a system, it just lends itself to this kind of corruption.
Are you going to be asking the legislature to restore that oversight?
Well, we've raised objections when they've taken it away in the past. Some legislators have reached out to me already and said, how would I feel about that oversight being restored or perhaps even enhanced? We certainly would welcome that. We have the staff capability to do that. And I think that's something that the people of New York would expect, that in response to, you know, to these charges and these allegations, that we have a much more robust process of oversight, checks and balance, transparency and accountability. And the Comptroller's office, that's what we're set up to do.
Now, to go back to campaigns just for a second, obviously you returned some of your campaign money. What are your plans for 2018? Have you decided whether you're seeking re-election or would you run for something else?
I look forward to seeking re-election to be state controller. It's a great job. We're doing important work, and the committee I have set up is for the Comptroller's office.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Kyle.